Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good whatever time of day it is, wherever you are right now. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals. And we're going to talk about the Oregon Community College Funding Challenge. The Oregon Community College Funding Challenge. Apparently that must be a challenge because my friend and guest, as Michael Sonnleitner, is here to talk about that. Hello.
Hi. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. Yeah, a ritualistic handshake. So it's always good to have you on again. You've been on a number of times before because you've got topical things that we're talking about and your worldview on so many issues that I am familiar with and enjoy talking about, chatting about. You're just all over the place and so beautiful, including your having been in the birthplace or the home of Mahatma Gandhi.
Yes, you seem to be really interested in that. I appreciate that. Most people in this country don't know much about Gandhi, and I do.
Yeah.
But today's program is not entirely about that, unless you want to pursue some tangent. I'm hopeful that this sign is appropriate, that you need to be kind even to unkind people.
That'll be the day.
So I'm going to hold you to that.
How are you feeling right now?
Good.
How was the weather coming over in goofy weather time in Portland, Oregon?
It's a piece of cake.
Did you cross the river?
Well, I drove on a road. I didn't have to swim or wade, so it was
Here
good.
it starts.
Didn't slip slide.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's easy. I spent many years in the Midwest, and when we get consecutive days below zero and wind chills in the minus 50s, then I will put on shoes.
Sure. That's right. You're practically barefoot again.
Well, it's habit.
Are you an eccentric?
From my own point of view, I'm really incredibly moderate and normal.
And grandiose sometimes, too.
You might be eccentric.
Yeah. And a lot of other things, but not any of those we can say over the air. Okay. As you know, for the viewers' sake, this is a two-part show. The first part is where we talk about who you are personally. And since you've been on recently in the past, we will do an abbreviated version of the bio segment. But you've still got interesting stuff to talk about. Even if the viewers have seen it before, they want to hear it again. For example, some things to do with the time in India. But anyhow, let's start off with the bio segment here. Now, remember this one? If I ask your best friend, who is Michael? What was your best friend? Michael is what?
Michael is an unusual person who
Yes.
probably is seen as being really, really smart, but I have them fooled. But I'm really, really is extremely organized, kind of almost obsessive compulsive. And I have a clear moral compass, and my compass is very similar to Gandhi's, and so that makes me unusual in the eyes of most people, so they would probably say smart, of course they're a little bit wrong, and unusually organized, they're right there, and committed to be a change agent in this world.
Are you having any success?
In my own eyes, not remarkable. But then Gandhi liberated his country from India from Britain in 1948, and he didn't think that he was successful either. Ideals, I think, stay ideals because they can't be achieved. And I want much more from this world than this world is prepared to provide. Yet. So we take baby steps, right?
Yes.
And I would like to see a world, as Gandhi would have liked to have seen a world, where people are self-ruled. His word was Swaraj, self-ruled. And self-rule had many levels for Gandhi. One was political independence. That was a very superficial level.
Yes.
One was village independence or decentralized democracy. And I'm very much there too. That's one reason that I'm with the Green Party in terms of my political affiliation.
How many times were you there in his birthplace? 3 times over some
In his
years?
actual birthplace, only once.
Oh,
That's Rajkot in the state of Gujarat
Yes.
in India. I've been to India 3 times for
3
a total
times.
of, I guess, a year and a half.
Oh,
Well, so it's a great place. I hope to go back this year.
okay. Anything significant about your racial or cultural heritage that's worth mentioning for the viewers?
Racial heritage is, I suppose, primarily Irish, but that's cultural. I think race is kind of an artificial construct. I don't know if I have a little bit of Neanderthal in me. It's possible, but I think mostly I'm Homo sapiens.
Homo what?
In terms of species, Homo sapiens.
Okay, you scared me for a moment.
And I suspect we both go back somewhere to Lucy in Africa, or someone like Lucy, or name something other than Lucy. So I recognize that people see me as white and male, and I see myself as more and more a person, and attempting to be universal in my identity. And that, again, is a very Gandhian sort of influence. So that's unusual. I'm probably mostly Hindu in my worldview.
That was my next question.
And we can take tangents about reincarnation as we have in the past, and my commitment to nonviolence, which takes many forms. But in terms of today's program, I think
Yes.
I chose to go into education as not a job, but a vocation. A vocation very much like someone might choose to be a minister. A vocation where the objective is really to encourage people to be more self-realized, more self-actualized, more empowered. Not to have people come to particular conclusions about what's right and wrong, but to be committed to seek truth and hopefully add to the common understanding of it in their own lives.
Is there a deficiency now in people seeking truth, particularly in America?
Too many people claim to have it. And we do. We both have it and we don't have it. But the thing is, most people in this culture, Judeo-Christian, Islamic culture, are very dualistic in their way of looking at the world. You either know something or you don't. You're either right or you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're either extremely wise or really, really stupid. And my experience about myself and others is that we're all of those things.
How much of each of those?
It's a matter
are
of
you?
degree. All of it's a matter of degree, in my thinking. And most of us live with shades of gray. That's why it's important to have a good moral compass, so that you don't, so you have a direction that you're seeking to go.
What's a moral compass, sir?
Well, a compass of fundamental values that guide your life. And for me, these are similar to Gandhi. It's a Gandhian framework. These are basically what Christians might say is the Trinity: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But
That's too far out for me.
Gandhi would say truth, nonviolence or ahimsa, and voluntary sacrifice or suffering. That was his Trinity, and it does correspond to the Christian Trinity.
How good are you at suffering?
I have a high toleration for pain.
You do.
I don't say that with pride. It's just something I've gotten used to.
Physical or psychological or what?
Both. And that's not a credit to me particularly, but it simply is what is. when you're raised in a single-parent household, in what I now recognize was relatively poor, economically poor environment, and you're an only child, you spend a lot of time making do, and I did. With whatever there was, I would occupy myself.
And where was this? What part of the country were you in then? Were you born?
Born in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas, and of course that's a long way from here. And most of my early youth was in the Seattle area, near Highline, in South Seattle. I have no complaints. I think we all adapt to our environments, and what pain I experienced in my life pales by the comparison with the pain that many people have to experience, people of color, women in a patriarchal society. I recognize that I've always had white privilege now. I didn't recognize that before. But I do recognize pain, and I embrace it because it helps me to feel the pain of others. To have some emotional intelligence, maybe, to compensate for my lack in other areas.
You don't got none of that.
We all have our challenges. So truth, for me, nonviolence and self-sacrifice. And truth is something you seek and don't claim to have entirely. You seek to learn from even those who might be unkind, because they may actually have something to tell you. Why are they unkind? Why are they angry? Probably they have roots for those behaviors. If we understand those roots, we can probably understand them. I don't think they're unkind people. I think they're people whose behavior may be unkind. In my view, they have souls just like all of us, and they can be encouraged to be more humane and better people.
We all have souls. What does that mean?
We have that spark of life that you can see in the twinkle of your eye.
I love your microphone.
That makes you special, and it's a pervasive force. I'm not going to get into the Star Wars analogies, but I think I do believe that there is that which lives beyond the body, that continues to live, and that's a metaphysical truth for me, and it was also for Gandhi. Helped him become far less fearful of death, and a person who has very little fear of death has no one who can really control them politically. They're a revolutionary. They can be a change agent. To the extent that you're controlled by fear, you are not able to be an effective change agent.
Am I a change agent that you know of me?
Yes. I think we all are to varying degrees, again.
Yeah.
And I think we need to speak the truth as we see it, and too many people are afraid to do that because they're afraid of what people might say about them. They're controlled by others' expectations and society's values.
Okay.
I don't care to be known by my wealth. Don't have that much. Don't want that much. I want to be remembered, if I can be, as a compassionate person who has done their best to make the world a better place. And I did that through education. That is, I got a PhD in political science. It's appropriate for someone who wants to be a change agent.
Of course.
And need to know the system that is in order to be able to impact the system and hopefully change it for the better. Went into teaching. There's no better way to continue to be a student throughout your entire life than to be a teacher. I figured that out. So I'm really a professional student, is what I am.
I love that.
And 27 years full-time teaching at Portland Community College.
27 years. That's a lot of years.
They just fly by, you know. People are so impressed, and I go, well, so I'm to be respected because I haven't died yet? That's not much of an accomplishment.
Roll of the dice.
So many factors playing into that. And so almost 4 years ago, I decided to run for the Board of Trustees of Portland Community College, and I did. And I know how to run a campaign. I'm knowledgeable. And I'm not sure if I was the best person to win, but I ran the better campaign. And I became the first former employee of Portland Community College ever to be serving on the Board of Trustees. In 50 years plus of Portland Community College, they had never had someone like me.
Why is it that you are good for this board?
I think they needed someone with that background at this point in time, especially. We need a variety of people on the board and in any group to provide a variety of perspectives. But that particular point of view, not that I represent all faculty, I don't, but the point of view of experience in the classroom with students, having experimented with how to improve education, I come from an experiential background that is useful in an educational setting.
Of course.
And I contribute. I also contribute because during those 27 years I taught state and local government.
Ooh, civics.
Well, basic civics, but it's complex. There's no good standard textbook for Oregon state and local government. We're not a big enough market. In Texas and California, they have entire textbooks for state and local government. Here, one has to build one's knowledge base, and it's a hard course to teach because it constantly changes.
Of course.
The issues change, the data changes, and so I'm also rare because I've been to every legislative session in Salem since 1989.
Ooh.
Not as an elected official, but as a faculty person taking his students on a field trip and just trying to stay up to date in terms of the tax system, up to date education policy, up to date. Why is it that we spend more on corrections, that is punishment in Oregon, than we do on higher education? That's a good question.
Did you have an answer?
Fear. There's an awful lot of fear in our culture.
Yeah.
And we seem to fear those who might do us harm, even when it's an irrational sort of statistic.
Mm-hmm.
We're too overcome by bad movies of psychopaths. And ironically, we spend less then on education, higher education, than we do on prisons. And that is ironic because in neglecting education, we might actually be encouraging more abnormal human behavior from people who are lacking in their empowerment. People who don't have a good self-concept are far more likely to act out in very violent ways.
Yes.
Education is the key, I believe, to the better world that I envision. And I'm going to keep at it as long as I live, which might be another few months.
So, you're not retired, you're on the board.
My income is entirely from Social Security and PERS as a former public employee.
Yeah.
So I am retired, and the Board of
That takes a
Trustees
lot
at
of your
PCC,
time, huh?
it takes as much time as one wants to devote. I have more time because I am retired. Some of my colleagues still have young children. I remember those days. And so in some ways, I think they put in more effort than I do, proportionate to the time they have available.
Yeah.
I was in Salem 2 days last week lobbying the legislature because my children are all, 30 years and up, right?
Yeah.
And I have the time. It doesn't mean that I do more. It means that I try to give what I have of time, which might be a little more time.
You enjoy what you're doing.
I am committed to being a change agent. And there is pleasure in that, to the extent one has little victories along the way. Especially, there is pleasure. But I enjoy the classroom far more than the boardroom or the fancy galas that I go to network with people and to get to know them. I don't like dressing up. And I'm not particularly good in a high-class social setting.
Do you miss the classroom environment and your relationship with the children?
I mean, they're not children. They're really adults.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, I had youngsters as young as 15 in my classes over the years.
Of course, yes.
But I've also had youngsters as old as 85. And 15,000 students went through my classrooms over the 27 years I taught at PCC. And they taught me. It wasn't one way, you see. I was a student. And I still am a student. I'm just learning to function in a different context than I was before. Never expected to be an office holder. Didn't expect to run for office. That wasn't in my plan. Gandhi never held political office. He was an organizer. He was a leader by example. And that is more my style.
You're getting enough satisfaction in your everyday existence nowadays.
It's fun being here. It's fun being with you.
Yeah.
And we do need to have fun in our lives. There's way too much serious to get depressed about. There's no future in that.
Sometimes I wonder if that's true or not, because I am lately depressed more lately than I've been in a long, long time. And I'm wondering if the last, what's the word, die-off, the final, life on
We're
Earth.
looking for the sixth extinction or something?
Yes, the ultimate, the final extinction.
Oh, well, come on. Have a little faith.
Faith? What is that?
Well, hey, science.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that Mr. Trump and the North Korean leader agree on having a nuclear war. And
Careful what you say.
Expands. And the greater likelihood is probably because we're getting out of the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, which is very disturbing, both Russia and the United States. And that was a key treaty back in the Reagan years to reduce the likelihood of nuclear war. So let's say we have a nuclear war. Let's be lighthearted. It's not the end, Don. It's not the end.
It has been the end in the past.
No.
There's the evidence is there.
Fruit flies and cockroaches mutate with remarkable success. We will simply have different species evolve. If we're stupid enough to wipe ourselves out, maybe that's for the better. So let us try not to be that stupid. Wake up. Wake
Hope
people.
springs eternal.
Well, it's just, it happens. The first 5 extinctions didn't completely wipe everything out, so I don't think the 6th will either. On the other hand, we need to be positive in terms of doing the best we can to show the intelligence that our species does possess. We're capable. we're capable of avoiding extreme catastrophe, but we need to open our eyes.
Intelligence? What are you talking about, this phenomenal thing called intelligence?
It's a 12-year-old having an exchange with Dianne Feinstein. Hate to be personal, but her recent piece has gone viral on YouTube. We need to get out of old ways of thinking. When
Yes.
a 12-year-old says, I understand scientists tell us we have 12 years, about 12 years to turn this thing around, that the environmental catastrophe is on the horizon, clear and present danger, and she responds by saying, well, gosh, gee, I don't think the Green New Deal is going to be able to pass Congress in 10 years. Let's be realistic. She doesn't get it. When she understands
Atrophy.
that the past things have changed slowly, she doesn't get it that that pattern has to change, or she'll be part of the extinction. Thank you very much. People of that mentality, of any age, need to be replaced in political office, regardless of party. We are required now, for the sake of our survival as a species and for the sake of our grandchildren, if you want to be personal about it, to change our thinking and to act boldly.
Let me take you back to our bio a bit, because time is flying by.
Yes.
And I'm charmed by what you are and what we're talking about and things that are really important. You have such ability to talk about those kinds of things. You have a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, in your life.
Oh, sure. My wife has been there now. We're approaching 36 years.
36 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she still hasn't learned about you yet?
She puts up with me, which is quite miraculous.
How about children?
Well, I have 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
1 is adopted. 3 are the biological offsprings of, our union.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
3
And
grandkids, and it's a good family.
are you a Trump supporter?
I support Mr. Trump's capacity to become a better human being and to become a little more enlightened himself.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't give up on anyone. Though honestly, I think the odds are very slight, and again, some people who don't seem to be very capable of progressing at the pace we need to step aside, or
You got to
gently
step them aside.
pushed aside.
Yeah.
And he is in that category, but I would say Dianne Feinstein is too, even though she doesn't tweet and she's not nearly as obnoxious. We need to be able to move forward for the sake of our grandchildren and the world.
So then if those things happen the way you hope they do, then we'd have better funding for Portland Community College.
That's just a very, very tiny little piece of the puzzle. I can't change the world if I can't, take care of cleaning my own toilet, right? In my own home.
Yeah.
Literally. And Oregon has a pattern of extreme underfunding of K through 12, pre-K through 12, and higher education that is disgraceful. We're not alone among the states, but we are competitive in terms of being the worst.
What about the pattern that seems to be going on now across the whole system in America, privatizing education? Is that going in the right direction?
No, because generally privatizing means those who have greater resources will simply have better educational opportunities, meaning also better opportunities for employment, to perpetuate the wealth they probably already have. So that simply increases the economic disparity between the have and have-nots. And that also, of course, enhances the racist divide, because halves are more likely to be white and male.
Let me ask you a couple of questions before we go into the second half of the show. Heroes, persons who are alive today other than Gandhi that you look up to or admire, and you think back in your life when probably 2 or 3 names come to mind.
Well, let's see. Those that are my primary role models have passed on.
Okay.
That would include Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Dorothy Day.
Dorothy Day.
Of the Catholic worker movement.
Uh-huh.
And
were you a Catholic at one time?
Others. No.
Okay, excuse me.
Never been. I've been baptized 3 times, but never in the Catholic Church.
You're all over the place. Got to redo it again now to make it work.
Not going to happen.
So any other names come to mind? Okay.
Well, I mean, more recently, I think we always have inspiring people in our midst that aren't particularly famous. A couple of years ago, Alexandria in New York was a bartender. And now she's a congresswoman, right? And I find her inspiring. There's a 12-year-old I saw on Democracy Now! Who is from Norway, and she undertook a fast 1 day a week in front of the Norwegian Parliament in favor of awakening them to the dangers of climate change. She has Asperger's syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
She is single-minded. She is laser visioned. She is bright. And she is inspiring. That 12-year-old is inspiring to me. I mean, there are a lot of people that inspire me today.
Last question. We talk about doing good. What does that mean? Doing good. Our goal is supposedly doing good. And what does it mean to you? I think you agree we should be doing good. It would be better to be doing good.
Everyone would say that. But I would say the means are the end. And the means fundamentally are doing to others as you would have them do unto you. Just keep that golden rule in mind. Behave as you would like other people to behave. Show the same civility in the way you express yourself as you would like to have expressed toward you, yourself.
And that's doing good?
That is doing good, because that is the seed of the better world. If you want a more civil world, you need to behave in a more civil fashion. That may mean going to jail. It may mean very aggressive civil disobedience. It may be tearing down, literally, power structures. But you don't necessarily have to intentionally do harm in that process. And so, if you want more democracy, you seek to encourage greater democracy. The seed becomes the tree. That's my fundamental, I think, moral compass issue. The process, it's all about process. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not even what your goal is, it's how you achieve your goal. You're not going to get democracy through undemocratic means. It's not going to work.
Let's take a break before we skip over. Okay, we're back.
Hey.
Thanks for staying tuned. Now, for your viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals, and you are unique and interesting. And about whatever it is we've decided to talk about tonight. We've wandered all over the place. And I enjoy just talking with you about anything. So, so back to the topic.
Back to the topic of the challenges being faced by community colleges.
Yes, yes.
Well, there are over 2,000 community colleges by various names. Some of them called junior colleges, so on. But in the U.S.
Yes.
And 17 of those are in Oregon.
17?
17 community colleges. PCC is just one. Portland Community College has 4 campuses, but we're just one college.
Okay.
The 17 community colleges in Oregon, all over the state, need resources from the state of Oregon in order to keep tuition and fees within some reasonable bounds.
Meaning money, resources, that's another name for money, right?
Yes. They need allocations.
Okay.
Otherwise, they effectively become more and more privatized. The less state support, the higher the tuition and fees, the less real open access we have in effect because we price people out. And so, for example, when I came to Portland Community College 30 years ago as an instructor, tuition was $23.50 per credit hour. So you could have a 4-credit class if you wanted to for less than $100.
Oh, man.
Today, literally today, 2019, it is $111 per credit hour. And you can't even buy a 4-credit class with that. That's tuition only. Doesn't include fees. So the tuition has gone up and up because state funding in those 30 years has proportionately gone down and down.
Why is that?
Well, there are political reasons for it. Certainly, the property tax revolution of Measure 5, 1990, which happened in Oregon during my first 2 years of teaching at PCC, had a rippling effect in that direction. That and the fact that we tend to have a culture in Oregon that tends to be kind of libertarian, very suspicious of taxes in general. We've voted down sales taxes at least 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
No tax, no tax, no tax. No free lunch. Does that mean no free education? Some would say that, but that cultural reluctance to come up with the resources necessary for pre-K through 12 and higher education has cost us very severely. In these 30 years, corporations in Oregon have benefited. They certainly benefited from the property tax revolt. I don't think that was the intent of the voters, but that was the effect. Nike and many others had dramatic tax decreases as a result of the falling property tax rates that were voted in. So when we have, at the present time, is several realities. One is that Oregon has the lowest corporate tax rates overall of any state in the United States. And it's not entirely surprising, and this is coming from the Oregonian just today, that we have the highest per capita spending from corporations on political campaigns of any state in the United States.
Well, those are the guys who decide where the money goes, huh?
Well, in other words, corporations in general, I think there's a big difference between Walmart and a ma-pa grocery store. Please understand. I'm not putting everyone in the same boat. But those who advocate for corporate taxes being low, lower, lowest, they're job creators, it's an interesting argument. Well, they are able to propagate that view, spending $10.90 per person in Oregon per election cycle, making us the number one
Job creators.
spender.
That's stuck in my mind. You use that term, job creators.
Yes.
That sounds like some sort of a fiction, as it's used nowadays in politics. Job creators, are there really job creators in this, when we're talking about a particular issue?
Well, certainly a small business person who builds up their business to a point of being able to hire 4 or 5 employees has helped to create those positions. Let's give them some credit.
What percentage of the population takes advantage of that, or turns out that their jobs are created? Is there something more important than that in job creation?
Well, certainly, but we need employment in this capitalist society in order to pay the rent and pay our bills. We need employment.
What if we had a socialist society instead?
Well, now we're jumping around.
Yes, we are.
But that is possible. To varying degrees, I think it's desirable.
Okay, I'll stop jumping around.
I mean, you can have, if we had, for example, universal health care,
Okay.
if we had single payer, that would be a tremendous boon for Portland Community College. Because right now we have to, that is, as an employer of over 4,000 employees, PCC is a major player in the Portland metro area. We're one of the 12 largest community colleges in the entire country. We're certainly the largest in Portland and in the state of Oregon.
Yes.
So what we have is people needing employment, but we need to be able to give them the skills to create their own jobs. Otherwise, if we were to have single payer coverage for our 4,000 employees, we would not be having to pay so much as an institution for health care, because it's a big cost driver. We would be able to lower tuition, allow for more students to be able to come who might otherwise be priced out, and this would have a tremendous rippling effect. So all the issues are interrelated.
Of course.
I do believe in public education. I do believe in public health care. A great many countries throughout Europe and elsewhere have national health care systems that are far more cost beneficial and with better outcomes than what we have in the United States. So to some extent, yes, I am socialist, and I'm not bothered by that word. On the other hand, socialists historically have been notoriously pro-economic development and not particularly sensitive to the environment. And that they don't have a great track record. Certainly the Soviet Union, China,
That's an exception to socialism.
Vietnam. Name a country, even Norway, which is relatively progressive on the environment, still is not carbon neutral.
I think you need I would like to talk about Joe Stalin and Russia and socialism as practiced by Russia. That's an exception. Generally, socialism is the kinds of stuff that's going on in a lot of Europe nowadays. You look at the economics versus social responsibility and caring for fellow human beings. That's the bottom line. So what's going on with capitalism in America is not an example of what Trump is about. So there's something more with those kinds of dictators like Joe Stalin and Donald Trump. Those are exceptions.
Well, all I'm saying is it's only relatively recent that democratic socialists have become more environmentally aware and active.
Yes.
I appreciate it, but it's relatively recent. It's not inherent in socialism. It's inherent in a greater awareness of what we're doing to our environment. And others can come to that awareness too. So I'm not saying that it's the only way. What I am saying is the state of Oregon needs to recognize education as a public good. And we have with our lip service, but not in our budgets. That's just the plain fact of it. And corporations in Oregon can step up to the plate, pay far more of a fair share, and it would be in their capitalist self-interest to do so. To have a more socialist education system, producing more of the skilled employees that they themselves say they need. So what do we have? We have an extremely dysfunctional system. In Oregon, we have a situation where, just to bring it really up to date, community colleges, those 17 community colleges, had basically $570 million from the state to help them keep tuition relatively low in the last 2 years. At least the increases have not been horribly dramatic. Well, this year, Governor Kate Brown said, well, $270 million, they don't need that. Instead of 570, we'll give them 543. We'll cut the 570 by 4%. We'll primarily focus on K through 12 and pre-K through 12, and they need that focus. There's no doubt that they need increased revenues. But she actually cut community college funding. Unless there's dramatically new revenues, we won't even be able to keep up with inflation for the next 2 years.
Privatizing.
That's the effect, even if it's not the intent. Sometimes impact, not intent, is more important.
Yes.
And the impact is devastating. If Portland Community College, which gets about a third of that 570 or so, is not able to get something closer to, with inflation, that would be about $30 million more for PCC, then we have to make that up one way or the other. We could make it up by having no layoffs and about a $17 per credit increase for each of the next 2 years. Let's go from $111 now and just kind of go up another 34 in 2 years. 1/3 increase in overall tuition in 2 years. That's how we could make it up. Or we could, of course, lay off. Mathematically, we would probably need to lay off about 120 employees to make up that gap and not have a tuition increase. So we're being placed between a rock and a hard place, and I've been an advocate for shared pain in response to what I see as government irresponsibility. They're not stepping up to the plate yet, and that would mean that we need to increase tuition significantly and also have layoffs at the same time.
It seems like...
It's called a balanced budget.
Well, it seems like there's something missing here.
What's missing is state funding. And what's behind the missing state funding is a lack of resources coming from corporations, primarily large, but potentially also small.
You are a socialist, aren't you?
No, I just believe that it's important.
Yeah.
I wouldn't label myself socialist. I'm
I
green. Greens are neither left nor right. We have socialist elements. We have other elements in our ideology. I don't want to get off too far on that front.
Okay.
But no, I wouldn't label myself primarily socialist.
I would call myself socialist, democratic socialist. Bernie Sanders is a hero of mine.
Bernie Sanders is good. He could be better on some issues.
So can anybody.
Okay.
Pick a fight with you. No, no, absolutely not.
I think he certainly did not show sufficient empathy towards people of color in the last campaign. He didn't show sufficient criticism of
Israel.
well, not just Israel, but of military spending,
Okay.
which is a sacred cow here.
Yeah.
How are you going to fund this healthcare? How are you going to fund education? Well, how are we going to fund $717 billion per year for a military in the United States? How do we do that? Because we see it as a security issue. Healthcare is a security issue. Education is a security issue. We could easily cut our military spending by more than half and have resources without increasing taxes to fund other extremely important initiatives. We could do that. And yes, we could go back to a tax system that taxes the rich at about 74% of their income, as some socialists have been suggesting. Eisenhower had that in the early 1950s.
Yeah.
Was Eisenhower a socialist? I mean, come on.
What about FDR in the 30s?
We need to have the resources, and corporations need to stop finding excuses not to provide their fair share. It's in their self-interest for the society to have skilled workers who can be productive. And we are at a loss. We're not funding it. The community colleges are asking $647 million instead of the 570. 647, all 17 community colleges, to be able to just keep up with inflation. That's the base budget. We've proposed another $70 million to increase what's known as career technical education.
Yes.
We have over 65 programs at PCC alone where people are trained in the trades.
Yes.
And
That's important.
skilled jobs, family wage jobs. Employers are demanding it. In fact, we don't have enough supply to meet the employer demand. If we had $70 million more from the state of Oregon, the 17 community college districts could double their output of career technical education graduates. Double them. And then we are asking for another $70 million. It sounds like an awful lot of money, but another $70 million would allow us to dramatically increase graduation rates for everyone. What I mean dramatic, I mean we have programs like, we have specialty programs at PCC that have graduation rates of upwards of 85 to 90%. Future Connect is one of those. With $70 million, the 17 community college districts in Oregon could adapt a Future Connect-like program throughout the state of Oregon, and our graduation rates at the community colleges could go up from about 25% now to over 80%. That's a social good.
We're going to need another 2 hours to finish this discussion because we're running out of time. So how about you look at that camera and tell the viewers out there what's on your mind right now about what we talked about here, or anything else on your mind that would be of use to them in what we're talking about, the community college welfare.
Well, it is the welfare of all that I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think community colleges in Oregon and elsewhere in this country play a huge role in being able to help empower the public, especially those who have the least resources and the least skills, to make for a more egalitarian, equitable society, and to make for a more peaceful society, more productive society, and overall, a more empowered and democratic society. It's all part of the same piece. Today we have a population of adults in this country where 50% cannot name the 3 branches of government. And we're surprised at who we elect or we don't elect to public office, and we have one of the lowest political turnout rates of any industrialized democracy in the world, right down there with Switzerland. Australia gets 90% voter turnout. We're lucky if we break 60%. We need education as a social good. We need that good to be paid for in large part by your tax money, which is an investment in your grandchildren, in your future, to become more aware so that, frankly, we can save the world as we know it.
Okay.
It's really as simple as that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Now we have a couple of public service announcements before we stop. The Nation is one of my favorite magazines. It's been around for many, many years. Go to thenation.org to learn what I'm talking about. The Nation. It's a good... I got to tell you about the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. And because without the American Civil Liberties Union, our civil liberties in this country would be further down the tubes than they are. Go to that website and learn about the ACLU. To learn more about the Alliance for Democracy, go to the national website at the alliancefordemocracy.org and the Portland, Oregon website at www.afd-pdx.org. And we got to end corporate personhood. Go to www.movetoamend.org to learn that corporations are not persons and money is not speech. We got to change that. That's really serious, yeah. So, thanks for watching. And remember KFC. And not that KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. To you too. And you too. And you too. Thanks. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.